being an entrepreneur sounds cool, but the reality of building a business is very, very difficult. Every level that you hit, there's a lot of things that suck that you just won't want to do. What you're capable of is on the other side. I don't feel like it.
And if you're committed to what it is that you're trying to do, nothing is going to stop you from getting there.
Welcome back to another episode of Real Business Owners with your boy, Trevor Cowley. This episode is a solo. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. I'm not going to waste any more of your time with this introduction, but per usual, if you're ready to level up personally and professionally, go to realbusinessowners.com. Enjoy today's show. Welcome back to another episode of Real Business Owners with myself, Trevor Cowley. This week, I want to talk to you guys about a few different things. So I'm going to hop around just a little bit. And I want to start out with Neuro-Association. On the Real Business Owners Mastermind call, I touched on this a few weeks back. And I think it's just a really, really important topic because more often than not, that anything that's good that's going to happen for us in our life will appear to be negative when it first shows up on your doorstep. So usually the thing that's going to redirect us to the path that we should be on or to be able to do the big thing isn't going to come wrapped up in a pretty bow. Usually it looks like a shitstorm. It's going to throw you a curveball that you didn't really expect. And the reason that is because the path that you're on, it's probably a path that you're on for a reason. And the reason is you believe that you could actually do the things if you just take little baby steps and you honor this thought that you have in your head that you need to go down this path and do it your way. The problem is this version of you isn't good enough to get that big, grand, massive result that you want. So this version of you probably doesn't even know the right path that you need to go down in order to accomplish that. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a couple different stories in regards to Neuro-Association. So I was talking with an individual about a week or two ago, something like that. And man, it's just been really cold outside when I go for my walks. And I could see his mind grumbling at some of the negative things that he would have to go through in order to experience the result that he wanted to experience. And I told him, well, when I wake up early and I go outside and it's 20 degrees and I start running and it's like bone chilling cold where I could just feel it almost in my soul. I tell myself in that moment, I'm alive. This is what it feels like to be alive. The reason that is because I'm really alert in that moment, right? Like when you're super cold, it's almost like your senses heighten. And I tell myself that, yeah, I'm cold. This is what being alive feels like. I'm associating the bone-chilling cold of the early morning wee hours as me feeling alive. And so how you associate what it is that you go through will determine how far you actually go. Because the path to success is so brutal that if you don't learn how to deal with the negative things and associate those negative things to actually being positive, the likelihood that you're going to stay on the path long enough in order to see success is super, super slim. 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 3 years, you're going to feel the brutality the success will put on you, and every step that you go up the mountain gets more difficult. When you're climbing elevation, it's less oxygen up there. There's a reason why on Mount Everest, you usually do it in stages, right? There's stage 1, stage 2. In other words, there's base camps. So you'll hit the base camps, and the reason that is it's for your body to acclimate to the level that you're at in terms of altitude. There's a process of acclimating when you're on the path to success. And if you're just going, and you're not really acclimating to the difficulties, the struggles that you're going to experience, the further that you go down the path and the less experienced you are in terms of being acclimated to those difficulties, the harder it becomes. And what ends up happening is you hit a point where you end up defaulting back and going to what's familiar. You go back to what you're used to experience, or a level of stress that you're able to tolerate, a level of stress that you're acclimated to. If we could figure out, okay, each level of stress and the harder that it gets, we associate that with being further down the path and closer to the level of success that we want to experience. Then when something brutal happens, somebody quits, somebody doesn't pay the invoice that you sent out, and it puts you in a tough financial situation, whatever the situation is that you're facing, you're going to say, of course, this is just kind of part of the process. That is part of the process. The bigger that you play, the more often you'll get screwed because you have more opportunities to get screwed because you have more money out there in the game that's being played with. If you have 50 employees, you have more employees to screw you over than if you have 1 or 2 employees. So the volume in which you're dealing with problems only increases as your business size increases. So the Neuro-Association part of it is a must. You have to associate what appears to be bad as this is just part of the process and it's a good thing. This is going to lead me to the employee that I actually need to solve the problems that we're dealing with. That individual obviously wasn't getting it done, and that individual wasn't the long-term person for this organization anyways. So I'm glad that they left so that I have an opportunity to find the person that can fill that role that can be with us a lot longer. So there's ways that you could look at the things that you're currently dealing with as it being a positive thing. It's just hard to have the right perspective when you're going through the shit. If you're in the middle of a shit storm, usually all you see is shit. All you're dealing with is problems and issues. And so therefore you start getting in a place where you become a real pessimist. Now, I like to call myself more of a realist than a pessimist. I will look at some negative things, but then I logically associate those negative things to, well, this is the positive outcome that I'm going to receive because of it. I'm willing to make the exchange. I'll go through high levels of difficulty and high levels of stress because I have enough data with where I'm at right now financially and physically and mentally that I know that there's an exchange being made. So if I ramp up the stress and I ramp up the pressure and I ramp up the amount of work that I'm doing, just the sheer volume, it's only a matter of time before the results happen. What happens is you start associating with the stress and the pressure as massive results. And what happens is you start getting obsessed with going through the process versus just being obsessed with the result. And if you're in the process and you don't have the result, then you get frustrated and then you stop doing the very thing that can get you the result. That's usually what happens. The people that are obsessed with the process. Kobe Bryant, he was obsessed with waking up at 4:30, whatever it was, being in the gym by 4 or 4:30. He was getting practices in prior to practice because he was obsessed with the process. Why? It's not that he loved it, it's he knew the exchange that he was making would show up on the court. He would receive a result from that. So his Neuro-Association is if I pull this lever, in other words, wake up super early, get more reps than anybody else, put myself through more pressure or stress than other people are willing to bear, I'm going to receive a result that they will never experience. That's called Neuro-Association. And there's many situations where what appeared initially to be bad was really the launching pad for a lot of good things for some of the most amazing people on the planet in terms of, let's say, Tom Brady. Tom Brady was whatever, 4th, 5th round draft, whatever, wherever he fell in the draft pick, it was 4th or 5th round. He didn't go where he thought he belonged. And he ended up being one of, if not the greatest quarterback of all time. So every big story starts at a low place. I'm trying to find you with where you're at right now or find you in your struggle and let you know that this is not your forever struggle. I'm trying to find you with where you're at right now and let you know that this is a launching pad for you. This is an opportunity for something much, much more. You're just being redirected. That's just how the process works. And if you don't view it like that, you could put yourself in a tough situation where you start letting your brain turn on you and resent the process, then therefore fall back to the individual that you're most familiar with, which was a version of you that at one point you were trying to get away from, which is why you started on the path anyways. E.T. the hip-hop preacher, he was homeless eating out of trash cans. Now he's within the top 5 or top 10 best motivational speakers. Michael Jordan cut from his basketball team. Those that know Conor McGregor's story, he was on food stamps prior to being a UFC champion. Ed Milet, I went from having no water to living waterfront. Because when he was in the process, there were some times that his water would be shut off and he would have to shower at the park. And he tells a story about having to hold up the towel or blanket when his wife had to take a shower at the park. More people could relate to that and say, oh, wow, I can now connect with the fact that I'm in a situation as bad as him or not even as bad as him. So that gives me the opportunity for something special to happen as long as I'm willing to put in the proper effort and work. Andy Frisella, whatever the story is, it's 50 grand or 56,000, 52,000, whatever the number was that he made in the first 10 years of First Form, and now it's doing hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. I personally know an individual that has 1.6 million on social media, and I knew him prior to that, and his story is his, at that time, wife cheated on him, and he was in an extremely bad mental state. You have the ability to convert pain and actually become elite. That's the beautiful thing about it. That's fuel. You have the opportunity to throw a pity party of one, because nobody's going to attend that shit, or you have an opportunity to completely reinvent yourself, and that's exactly what he chose to do. He threw himself in the gym. He ended up winning a physique competition where they were trying to do a model search, and he won a $100,000 contract. He got to the point where he's at today because he was experiencing an extreme low, and he needed a distraction from that low place. And so he threw himself, he utilized that low as fuel to literally recreate yourself. And so when your brain is going through something that is unfamiliar, in other words, let's say you have a complete shakeup in your life, and you can't really see what the future holds for you. That could be going through a divorce, and everything that's familiar to you now, showing up, going home, being in this environment, like none of that is going to exist. And now that your brain doesn't have the ability to project into the future of what your future looks like, you feel uncertain. And it's not that you're not capable, it's just that your brain doesn't have the ability to predict what is going to happen and what your future looks like. That's not a bad thing. And the reason that is because you now have the ability to create a new individual. You could start at that moment with all new habits, because the shakeup's going to happen and you're not going to be the same. And if you're not going to be the same, you might as well end up better. Or you can throw the pity party, the poor me, and you could be fucking guzzling beers or doing whatever it is that you want to do 10 years from now, saying that bitch or that dude, he fucked me, blah, 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 whatever it is. You have the ability to tell whatever story that you want to tell 5 to 10 years from now. I am the furthest from the individual that I was 7, 8, 9 years ago. I'm so far removed from the individual that I was even 5 years ago. I'm 40 years old. My running journey started. The first run that I ever did was the day that I turned 37. That was a big run. Obviously, I trained 10 times leading up to that, which was in June. So a month before I turned 37. And here I am a month out attempting to break a world record within literally a 3.5 year time frame. That shows you right there, when you actually get dialed in and you want to recreate yourself, you have the ability to change who you are from top to bottom within a very short window. The problem is when you're going through the phase of changing and you're dealing with the difficult days, that emotion of that difficult day, you utilize that and you project it into the future, and you feel like that you're going to feel like what you feel like today forever. You're not going to feel like what you currently feel like forever. It's impossible. What you're doing is you're just dealing with the human emotion. Something is surfacing, and you're going to have to either quit and give up when that thing surfaces, or you keep showing up and your body adapts. We adapt to the environments that we're put in. That's just the way that we're designed. So if you keep putting yourself in that harsh environment, that stressful environment, eventually it becomes normal, and what used to be a ceiling that causes stress is now what you just do on a day-to-day basis. It's not stretching you anymore, and it would take something more difficult to stretch you. That's why it's going from the 10 miles a day now to 13.1, because that's a stretch for me. And I can feel my body during training trying to adapt to that. It's breaking down like it did when I was trying to build up to the 10 a day. But I already have data knowing that if I keep showing up and keep doing that, yeah, I'm going to experience some tough days, but I'll get through it and I'll get better because of it. So the challenge that I have for you right now is, if you're in a state where your future is unfamiliar, you don't really know exactly what that's going to look like for you, or you want to completely recreate it, now's the time to do it. I was on a call, and I think sometimes I really eventually would like to get to this point. Well, the sooner that you start, the sooner you get to that point. Eventually, you're going to fucking die. Eventually, you're going to run out of time. You will never be more capable or more healthy than you are right now. So you might as well start doing the thing that's going to stretch you right now. Don't wait till things get worse before you start putting yourself on a path for better. Don't wait till your employees start showing up worse before you have that conversation. Don't wait till your finances get worse before you take your finances seriously. Don't wait until you get a health scare before things get better. I don't know what it is about the human being and the species that we are. It's like we wait for the worst possible situation before we start taking things seriously. Brent Knott, he owns a company called Torque. Torque is a CRM company, really, which is helping you streamline some systems and processes, automate some things, get a flow. If your leads are coming in, what do you want the first text message to say? What you want your follow-up to be? All of that good stuff. So he does an amazing job with that. All of that came on the back of him finally starting to take his business seriously, not necessarily him being the individual in the weeds doing all the work, because that's called self-employed. You're not a real business owner. Real business owners. That's what this podcast is. The idea is to be able to build something you own, not build something that owns you. At one point, his business owned him, and he took pride in the fact that I can outwork, outgrind, blah, 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 60, 70, 80 hours a week. I'm the one doing the work. Wrong thing to take pride in. Take pride in you're great at removing or delegating. You're great at creating opportunities for other people in your organization to take over positions that you currently deal with. That's what you should be taking pride in. I look at myself as an opportunity creator. I look around, what is it that I'm doing right now, and how can I create an opportunity for somebody else to do that so that they have the ability to level up and take something off of my plate? That's how you should be doing it. This is one of those eventually moments. I want to eventually do X. In his situation, we were out in Montana. We were running together when we were doing one of the mastermind meetups in Glacier. And he goes, I'm going to move to Mexico in the next year. That's my goal. That's what I eventually want to do. And I said, well, why a year? Well, I've got some things I need to sort out. I got some things that, I've got to put some pieces in place before I do that so that everything is stable. And I looked at him while we were running and I said, bro, whether you do it tomorrow or whether you do it next year, the problems will still surface. And you don't even know what the problems will surface until you actually go do that thing. So if that's really what you want to do, instead of saying eventually that's what you want to do, why don't you just go do it and let the problems surface, then deal with the problems as they surface. So what he was doing is he was trying to predict problems prior to doing the thing, which was making him overthink the entire process, which thinking is where big shit goes to fucking die. Doing is what actually gets things done. 60 days later, he was in Mexico, and then they did a 30-day stint. The problem surfaced. He flew back, dealt with the problem, went back. I think he did a 60-day stint. Problem surfaced. He went back, addressed. Now he lives in Mexico full time. His business is bigger than it's ever been and better than it's ever been. But if he would have waited eventually, then he would have lost a year. He would have forfeited a year of time to get to the problems that would arise within 60 days if he just goes and just does that thing. I think too often we get caught up in thinking about all of the problems that addressing the problem that we have in front of us is going to create. Therefore, we just get caught up doing busy shit and we end up doing a whole lot of nothing. If you haven't seen a whole lot of progress in the last 3 to 5 years, it's because you do a whole lot of nothing. You stay busy. If you're lacking financially, stop being fucking busy and start focusing on revenue generating activities. That's all you should be focused on. And if you have so much business coming in that you have to turn business away, you should be focusing on all your efforts, because this is a revenue generating activity, on increasing your fulfillment to be able to handle it. Because that would then be the revenue generating activity, because right now you're turning away revenue because you can't handle it. The other option that you have is you find somebody else that's in your industry that can handle it, and you do an affiliate, joint venture with somebody, so you can still make money off of the people that you don't have the ability to make money off of. But that is a lead that has a need. So if you have the ability to solve that need by partnering with somebody or doing a JV with them, then send them that lead and get the kickback. Saying, no, we don't have time would be, hey, sorry, we don't have time, but I do know somebody. Do you want me to do an intro? It's literally the same amount of time sending. If they say yes, then great, do the intro. There's ways to solve the problems that you have right now in front of you. But the fact is, the version of you right now is so familiar with the problems that it's almost like you don't want to deal with new problems. So you try to project the new problems so you just don't have to deal with them, so that you can keep the problems that you currently have, instead of just moving forward and chipping away and addressing what's right in front of you. Whatever it is that you're currently dealing with, every fucking day that you show up, how can I deal with this one problem? I need to address this. Your day should be built around addressing that problem. And then when you address that problem, the new problem will be created, which is fine. You're in fucking business. The only time you're not going to have problems if you're a business owner is if you're fucking dead. If you're exchanging money, you're dealing with humans, in other words, customers, you're dealing with employees, you're going to have problems. That's just part of it. That's why the Neuro-Association is so important. If we can't associate what appears to be negative as being good, doing the whole full circle, changing your perspective on it, you're going to have a very difficult time building and scaling something special. You're going to get to a certain point where you make enough money and you have certain problems that you're willing to tolerate, and then you just stay there. If you make $100,000 a year and you're good there, guess what? The problems that you've probably had for the last 2 years, if your income stayed, they're probably the same problems. You're just choosing not to address them because there's this comfort or complacency that you have at that level of income with the problems. That exchange is worth it to you. You need to start understanding that it's okay to make an exchange for an additional 1 or 2 years and increase the struggle and wait for the result to back pay you, because it will come full circle and it will back pay you. Neuro-Association is super important. If you want to win, you've got to figure that thing out. And if you do it long enough, you start associating struggle with progress. If you don't do it long enough, you struggle, create the point where you're just absolutely miserable, but you don't break through, and then you fade back just a little bit. You give yourself that reprieve so that you could survive because you're burned out. You find that motivation again 2 months down there and you're ready to go again. This time's going to be different. And you fight, struggle. You look for a reprieve again. So until you can associate the struggle with progress, you're not going to want to struggle. Struggle will equal misery to you. For me, struggle, friction equals progress. That's why I pursue it as heavily as I do. That's why I have multiple business ventures. That's why I've made millions of dollars. That's why I run the way that I run. I already know if I make that exchange for that couple hours every single morning, what I receive now because of it, like I know for a fact that I'm living up to my full potential. And there's no greater feeling. I can give you $1 million. You can't buy that. You can't buy the feeling of knowing that you're living up to your potential, that you're pursuing the best version of yourself. You're expanding your being in every possible way that you can. That's what I want for you. Yes, I want you to get rich in the process as well. Absolutely. But it should be more so about expanding yourself to the point where you start becoming addicted to the friction because that equals progress. And then you feel fulfilled because you keep pursuing friction because of the progress, and the byproduct ends up being the result that you originally wanted in the first place. That's when it starts getting beautiful, is when you're expanding yourself as a human being and you're expanding your finances. You will never be able to get to that point unless you associate the work that you're putting in and increasing the stress or pressure as progress.
Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Make sure you're sharing the show. Tag us at Real Business Owners on Facebook or on Instagram, and I'll show you guys some love and reshare it. Other than that, keep kicking ass. And if you're looking for additional content, you could check out Easier Money, the podcast.